Berkshire Hathaway Incorporated. To the shareholders of Berkshire Hathaway Incorporated, Berkshire's loss in net worth during 2001 was $3.77 billion, which increased the per share book value of both our Class A and Class B stock by 6.2% over the last 37 years. And since present management took over, per share book value has grown from $19 to $37,920, a rate of 22.6% compounded annually. All figures used in this report apply to Berkshire A shares, the successor to the only stock that the company had outstanding before 1996. The B shares have an economic interest of equal to 1/30th that of A. Per share intrinsic grew somewhat faster than book values in at least 37 years, and 2001 probably decreased a bit less. We explain intrinsic value in our owner's manual, which begins on page 62. I urge new shareholders to read this manual to become familiar with the Berkshire's key economic principles. 2 years ago, reporting in 1999, I said that we had experienced both the worst absolute and relative performance in our history. I added that relative results were what concerns us, a viewpoint I've had since forming my first investment partnership on May 5, 1956. Meeting with my 7 founding and limited partners that evening, give them shorter paper titled The Ground Rules, and included the sentence: whether we do a good job or a poor job is to be measured against the general experience in securities. We initially used the Dow Jones Industrials as our benchmark, but shifted to the S&P 500. When that index became widely used, our competitive record since 1965 is chronicled on the facing page. Last year, Berkshire advanced 5.7 percentage points. Some people disagree with our focus on relative figures, are given that you can't read relative performance, but if you expect, as Charlie Munger, Berkshire's vice chairman, and I do, that only the S&P 500 will produce reasonably satisfactory results over time, it follows that for long-term investors, gaining small advantages annually over the index must prove rewarding, just as you can eat well throughout the year. If you want a profitable but highly seasonal business such as seeds, which loses considerable money during the summer months, so too can your regular fees on investment returns that beat the averages, however the variable absolute numbers may be. Though our corporate performance last year was satisfactory, my performance was anything but. I managed most of my Berkshire's equity portfolio, and my results were poor, just as they have been for several years. Of even more importance, I allowed General Wright to take on business without a safeguard I knew was important. On September 11th, this error caught up with us. I'll tell you more about it, my mistakes later, and that we are doing corrected. None of my 1956 ground rules remain applicable, and I cannot promise results to partners, but Charlie and I can promise that your economic results from Berkshire will parallel ours during the period of your ownership. We will not take cash compensation, restricted stock, or option grants that will make our results superior to yours. Additionally, I will keep well over 99% of my net worth in Berkshire. My wife and I have never sold a share, nor do we intend to, and Charlie and I are disgusted by the situation so common in the last few years in which shareholders have suffered billions in losses while the CEOs, promoters, and other higher-ups who fathered these disasters have walked away with extraordinary wealth. Indeed, many of these people were urging investors to buy shares while concurrently dumping their own, sometimes using methods that hid their actions. To their shame, these business leaders view shareholders as pasties, not partners. Through Enron has become the symbol of shareholder abuse, there is no shortage of egregious conduct elsewhere in the corporate America. One story I've heard illustrates the all too common attitude of managers towards owners. A gorgeous woman slinks up with a CEO at a party, and though moist lips purrs, "I'll do anything you want. Just tell me what you would like." With no hesitation, he replies, "Reprice my options." One final thought about Berkshire in the future. We want close to replicating our past record. To be sure, Charlie and I will strive for above average performance, and I will not be satisfied with less. But 2 conditions at Berkshire are far different from what they once were. Then we could often buy business and securities at much lower valuations than now prevail, and more important, we were then working with far less money than we now have. Some years back, a good $10 million idea could do wonders for us. Witness our investment in Washington Post in 1973 or Geico in 1976. Today, the combination of 10 such ideas and a triple in the value of each increased the net worth of Berkshire by only 1/4 of the 1%. We need elephants to make significant gains now, and they are hard to find. On the positive side, we have as fine as an array of operating managers that exist in the company. You can read about many of them in a new book by Robert P. Miles of Warren Buffett, CEO. In large part, moreover, they are running business with economic characteristics ranging from good to superb. The ability, energy, and loyalty of these managers is simply extraordinary. We now have completed 37 Berkshire years without having CEO of an operating business elect to leave us to work elsewhere. Our star-studded group grew in 2001. First, we completed the purchase of 2 businesses that we had agreed to buy in 2000, Shaw and John's Manville, and then we acquired 2 others, Midtech Extra, and contracted to buy 2 more, Larson Gel, an acquisition that had just closed, in Fruit of the Loom, which will closely short if creditors approve our offer. All of these businesses are led by smart, seasoned, and trustworthy CEOs. Additionally, all of our purchases last year were for cash, which means our shareholders became owners of these additional businesses without relinquishing any interest in fine companies they already owned. We will continue to follow our familiar formula, striving to increase the value of the excellent businesses we have, adding new business similar quality and issuing shares only grudgingly. Acquisitions of 2001. A few days before last year's annual meeting, I received a heavy package from St. Louis containing an unreprocessing chunk of metal whose function I couldn't imagine. There was a letter in the package, though, from Gene Toombs, CEO of a company called Mitech. He explained that Mitech is the world's leading producer of this thing. I'd received a connector plate, which is used in making roof and trusses. Gene also said that the UK parent of Mitech wished to sell the company, and that Berkshire seemed to him the ideal buyer. Liking the sound of his letter, I gave Gene a call. It took me only a minute to realize that he was our kind of manager and Mitech our kind of business. We made a cash offer to the UK owner, and before long had a deal. Gene's managerial crew is exceptionally enthusiastic about the company and wanted to participate in the purchase. Therefore, we arranged for 55 members of the Mitech team to buy 30% of the company, we each putting up a minimum of $10,000 in cash. Meaning borrowed money so they could participate. As they will not be if they had options. All these managers are true owners. They face the downside of decisions as well as the upside. They incur a cost of capital and they can't reprice their stakes. What they paid is what they live with. Charlie and I love the high-grade true entrepreneurial attitude that exists at Mitech, and we predict it will be a mirror for all involved. In early 2000, my friend Julian Robertson announced that he would terminate his investment partnership, Tiger Fund, and that he would liquidate it entirely except for 4 large holdings. One of these was Extra, a leading lesser of truck trailers. I then called Julian asking whether he might consider selling his Extra block or whether, for that matter, the company's management might entertain an offer for the entire company. John referred to me to Lou Rubin, Extra CEO, and I had a nice conversation, but it was apparent that no deal was to be done. Then in June 2001, Julian called to say that he had decided to sell his Extra shares. In a civil conversation with Lou, the Extra board accepted the proposal we made, which was to be effectuated through a tender offer expiring on September 11th. The tender conditions included the usual out, allowing us to withdraw if the stock market were to close before the offer's expiration. Throughout much of the 11th, Lou went on through a particular wrenching experience. First, he had a son-in-law working in the World Trade Center who couldn't be located, and second, he knew we had the option of backing away from our purchase. The story ended happily. Lou's son-in-law skipped a serious harm and Berkshire completed the transaction. Trailer leasing is a cyclical business, but one in which we should earn a decent return over time. Lou brings a new talent to Berkshire, and we hope to expand the leasing. On December 3rd, I received a call from Craig Pondia, owner of Larson Gel, the U.S. leader in the custom-made picture frames. Craig has bought the company in 1981 after first working at its manufacturing plant while attending college, and thereafter increased its sales from $3 million to $300 million. Though I had never heard of the laser gel before, Craig's call a few minutes talk with him made me think it would strike a deal. He was straightforward in describing the business, cared about who bought it, and was realistic as to price. 2 days later, Craig and Steve McKenzie, his CEO, came to Omaha in 90 minutes. We reached an agreement in 10 days. We had signed a contract. Larson Gel serves about 18,000 framing shops in the U.S. and is also the industry leader in Canada and much of Europe. We expect to see opportunities for making complementary acquisitions in the future. As I write this letter, creditors are considering an offer we have made for Fruit of the Loom. The company entered bankruptcy a few years back, a victim both of too much debt and poor management, and a good many years before that, I had some Fruit of the Loom experience on my own. In August 1995, I was one of the 5 employees, including 2 secretaries working for 3 managers of Graham Newman Corporation, a New York investment company. Graham Newman controlled Philadelphia and Reading Coal and Iron P&R, an astrocyte producer and excess cash, a tax loss carry forward, and declining business at the time. I had a significant portion of my limited net worth invested in P&R shares, reflecting my faith in the business talents of my bosses, Ben Graham and Jerry Newman and Howard Mickey Newman. This fate was rewarded when P&R purchased the underwear company from Jack Goldfarb for $50 million. Union, though it was then only a licensee of the name, produced Fruit of the Loom underwear. The company possessed $5 million in cash, $2.5 million of which P&R used for the purchase, and was earning about $3 million. Pre-tax earnings that could be sheltered by the tax position of P&R and OES, full $9 million with the remaining $12.5 million due to was satisfied by non-interest-bearing notes. Payable from 50% of their any earnings, Union had in excess of $1 million. Those were the days I get goosebumps just thinking about such deals. Subsequently, Union bought the licensor of the Fruit of the Loom name, and along with P&R was merged into Northwest Industries. Fruit went on to achieve annual pre-tax earnings exceeding $200 million. John Holland was responsible for Fruit operations in its most painful years in 1996. However, John retired management loaded the company with debt in part to make its year of the acquisition that proved disappointing. Bankruptcy followed. John was then rehired and he undertook a major reworking of operations. Before John's return, delivery was chaotic, costs soared, and relations with key customers deteriorated. While correcting these problems, John also reduced employment from bloated 40,000 to 23,000. In short, he's been restoring the old Fruit of the Loom, albeit in a much more competitive environment. Stepping into Fruit's bankruptcy proceedings, we made a proposal to creditor which we attached no financing condition even though our offer had remained outstanding for many months. We did, however, insist on a very unusual proviso. John had to be available to continue serving as CEO after we took over to us. John and the brand are Fruit's key assets. I was helped in this transaction by my friend and former boss, Mickey Newman, now 81. What goes around truly does come around. Our operating companies made several bolt acquisitions during the year, and I can't resist telling you about one. In December, Frank Rooney called to tell me that HHBL was buying the inventory and trademarks of Acme boot for $700,000. That sounds like small potatoes, but what do you believe it? Acme was the second purchase of P&R, an acquisition that took place just before I left Graham Newman in the spring of 1956. The price was $3.2 million, part of it again paid with non-interest-bearing notes for a business with sales of $7 million. After P&R merged with Northwest, Acme grew to be the world's largest boot baker, delivering annual profits many multiples of what the company had cost P&R, but the business eventually hit the skids and never recovered, and that resulted in our purchasing Acme's remnants. In the front space of the securities analysis, Ben Graham and Dave Dodd quoted, Horace, many shall be restored that now are fallen, many shall fall that now in honor. 52 years after I first read those lines, my appreciation for what they say about business investment continues to grow. In addition to bolt-on acquisition, our manager continually look for ways to grow internally in that regard. Here's proscriptive story I told you 2 years ago about R.C. Willie's move to Boise. As you remember, Bill Child, R.C. Willie's chairman, wanted to extend his home furnishing operations beyond Utah, a state in which company does more than $300 million of business, up it should be noted from $250,000 when Bill took over 48 years ago. The company achieved this dominant position. Moreover, the close on Sunday policy that defied conventional retailing wisdom. I was skeptical that this policy could succeed in Boise or, for that matter, any place outside of Utah. After all, Sunday is a day many consumers most likely to shop. Bill then insisted on something extraordinary. He would invest $11 million of his own money to build Boise store and would sell it to Berkshire at cost without interest if the venture succeeded. If it failed, Bill would keep the store and eat the loss of its disposal. As I told you, in the 1990 annual report, the store immediately became a huge success, and it has since grown. Shortly after the Boise opening, Bill suggested we try Las Vegas, and this time I was even more skeptical. How could we do business in a metropolis that size and be closed on Sundays, a day that all their competitors would be exploiting? Buoyed by the Boise experience, however, we proceeded to locate in Henderson, a mushrooming city adjacent to Las Vegas. The result? This store outsells all other RC Will chain, doing a volume of business that far exceeds the volume of any competitor, and that it's twice that I had anticipated. I cut the ribbon at the grand opening in October. This was after a soft opening. In a few weeks of exceptional sales, and just I did at Boise, I suggested to the crowd that the new store was my idea. It didn't work. Today, when I pontificate about retailing, Berkshire people just say, what does Bill think? I'm going to draw the line, however, he suggested we also close on Saturdays. The economics of property casualty insurance. Our main business, though we have other great importance, is insurance. To understand Berkshire, therefore, it is necessary that you understand how to evaluate an insurance company. The key determinants are 1, the amount of float that the business generates, 2, its cost, and the 3 most critical of all, the long-term outlook for both of these factors. To begin with, float is money we hold but don't own. In an insurance operation, float rises because premiums are received before losses are paid in an interval that sometimes extend over many years. During that time, the insurer invests the money this pleasant activity typically carries. Without a downside, the premiums that an insurer takes and usually do not cover the losses and expense that it eventually must pay. That leaves it running an underwriting loss, which is the cost of float. An insurance business has a value if its cost of float over time is less than the cost the company would otherwise incur to obtain funds. But the business element of its cost of float is higher than market rates for money. Historically, Berkshire has obtained its float at a very low cost. Indeed, our cost has been less than zero in about half the years in which we've operated. That is, we've actually been paid for holding other people's money. Over the last few years, however, the cost has been too high, and in 2001, it was terrible. The table that follows show in intervals that the float generated by various segments of Berkshire's insurance operations since we entered the business 35 years ago upon acquiring National Indemnity Company, whose traditional lines are included in the segment Other Primary. For the table, we have calculated our float, which we generate in large amounts relative to our premium volume by adding net loss reserves, loss adjustment reserves, fund held under insurances, assumed and earned premium reserves, and then subtract insurance-related receivables. Prepaid acquisitions costs, prepaid taxes, and deferred charges applicable to assumed reinsurance. Got that? Year 1967, 1977, 1987, 1997, 1998, 1999, 2000, 2001. Geico started from 1997, 2,917, 3,925, 3,444, 3,943, 4,251. Year-end float in millions. General Ray, 14,909, 15,166 from 1998, 15,525, 19,310. Other insurance from 1978. 77, 40, 701, 4014, 4305, 6285, 7805, 11262. Other primary 1967, 20, 131, 807, 40, 455, 415, 403, 598, 695. Total from 1967, 20, 171, 1,508, 7,386, 20,754, 25,298, 57,871, 35,508. Last year, solely their bearing, a mega catastrophe or cost of flood would probably drop from its 2000 level of 6%. I had in mind natural catastrophe when I said that, but instead we were hit by a man-made catastrophe on September 11th, an event that levered the insurance industry its largest loss in history. Our float cost therefore came at a staggering 12.8%. It was our worst year in float cost since 1984. It is a result that to insignificant degrees I will explain in the next section we brought upon ourselves. If no mega catastrophe occurs, I once again expect the cost of our float to be low in the coming year. We will indeed need a low cost as well. All insurers some years back float costing say 40% was tolerable because government bonds yielded twice so much and stocks respectively offered still loftier returns. Today, fat returns are nowhere to be found. At least we can't find them, and short-term funds are earn less than 2% under these conditions. Each of our insurance operations save one must deliver an underwriting profit if it's to be just by good business. The exceptions are retroactive insurance operation, a business we explained in last year's annual report, which is desirable economics even though it currently hits us with an annual underwriting loss of about $425 million. Principles of insurance underwriting. Where property casualty companies are judged by their cost of float, very few stack up a satisfactory business. Interestingly, unlike the situation prevailing in many other industries, neither size nor brand name determines an insurance profitability. Indeed, many of the biggest investment company regularly delivers mediocre results. What counts in a business underwriting discipline? The winners are those that unfailingly stick to three key principles. They accept only those risks that are able to properly evaluate, staying within the circle of competence, and after they have evaluated all relevant factors, including remote loss scenarios, clear the expenses to see a profit. These insurers ignore market share considerations and are sanguine about losing business to competitors that are often in foolish prices or policy conditions. They limit the business they accept in a manner that guarantees they will suffer no aggregation of losses from a single event or from related events that will threaten their solvency. They ceaselessly search for possible correlation among seemingly unrelated risks. They avoid business involving moral risk. No matter what the rate, trying to write good contracts with bad people doesn't work. While most policyholders and clients are honorable and ethical, doing business with a few exceptions, usually expensive, sometimes extraordinarily so. The events of September 11th made it clear their implementation of Rules 1 and 2 and the general rate had been dangerously weak in setting prices and also in evaluating aggregation risk. We had either overlooked or dismissed the possibility of large-scale terrorism losses. That was a relevant underwriting factor and we ignored it. In pricing property coverages, for example, we had looked to the past and had taken into account only costs we might expect to incur from one storm front explosion or earthquake, but what will be the largest insured property loss in history after adding related business interruption claims originated from none of these factors. In short, all of us in the industry made a fundamental underwriting mistake by focusing on experience rather than exposure, thereby assuming a huge terrorism risk for which we perceived no premium. Experience, of course, is a highly useful starting point in underwriting most coverages. For example, it's important for insurers writing California earthquake policies to know how many quakes in the state during the past century have registered 6.0 or greater on the Richter scale. This information will not tell you the exact probability of a big quake next year or where the state it might happen, but the statistic has the utility, particularly if you are writing a huge statewide policies national indemnity has done in recent years. At certain times, however, using experience as a guide to pricing is not only useless but actually dangerous. Late in bull market, for example, large losses from directors and officers, liability insurance DNO are likely to be relatively rare when stocks are rising. There is scarcity of targets to sue in both questionable accounting and management chicanery often go undetected at that juncture. Experience and a high limit DNO may look great, but it's just when exposure is likely to be exploited by way of ridiculous public offerings, earnings manipulation, chain letters like stock promotions, and potpourri of other unsavory activities. When stocks fall, these serve as hammering investors with losses that can run into hundreds of billions. Juries deciding whether these losses should not be borne by small investors or big insurance companies can be expected to hit insurers with verdicts that bear little relation to those delivered in the bull market days. Even one jumbo judgment, however, can cause a settlement, cause it later cases to mushroom. Consequently, the correct rate for DNO excess, meaning the insurer will pay losses above high threshold, might well, if based on exposure, be 5 or more times the premium dictated by experience. Insurers have always found it costly to ignore new exposures. Doing that in case of terrorism, however, could literally bankrupt the industry. No, when there's a probability of a nuclear detonation in the major metropolis of the year, or even multiple detonations, given that a terrorist organization able to construct one bomb might not step there. Nor can anyone Insurance assessed the probability this year or another of a deadly biological or chemical agents being introduced simultaneously, say through ventilation systems in the multiple office buildings and manufacturing plants. An attack like that would produce astronomical workers' compensation claims. Here's what we do know. The probability of such mind-boggling disasters, though likely very low at present, is not zero. B. The probabilities are increasing in an irregular and measurable manner as knowledge and materials become available to those who wish us ill. Fear may recede with time, but the danger won't. The war against terrorism can never be won. The best a nation can achieve is a long succession of stalemates. There can be no checkmates against hydra-headed foes. See, until now, insurers and reinsurers have blithely assumed the financial consequences from the incalculable risk I have described. D. Under a close to worst-case scenario, which could conceivably involve $1 trillion of damage, the insurance industry would be destroyed unless it manages in some manner to dramatically limit its assumption of terrorism risks. Only the U.S. government has the resources to absorb such a blow. If it's willing to do so on a prospective basis, the general citizenry must bear its own risk and count on the government to come to its rescue after the disaster occurs. Why, you might ask, didn't I recognize the above facts before September 11th? The answer, sadly, is that I did, but I didn't convert thought into action. I validated no role. Predicting rain doesn't count. Building arc does. I consequently let Berkshire operate with a dangerous level of risk. A John Ray in particular, I'm sorry to say that much risk over which we haven't been concentrated remains on our books, but it's running off by a day. At Berkshire, it be noted, we have for some years been willing to assume more risk than any other insurer has knowingly taken on. That's still the case. We are perfectly willing to lose $2 billion to $2.5 billion in the event of Sweden on September 11th if we had been paid properly for assuming the risk that caused a loss, which on that occasion we weren't. Indeed, we have a major competitive advantage because of our tolerance for huge losses. Berkshire has massive liquid resources, substantial non-insurance earnings, a favorable tax positions, and knowledgeable shareholder constituency willing to accept volatility in earnings. This unique combination enables us to assume risks that far exceed the appetite of even our largest competitors over time, ensuring these jumbo risks should be profitable through periodically that will bring on a terrible year. The bottom line today is that we will write some coverage for terrorist-related losses, including a few non-correlated policies with very large limits, but will not only expose Berkshire to loss beyond what we can comfortably handle. We will control the total exposure no matter what the competition does. Insurance operations 2001. Over the years, our insurance business have provided ever-growing low-cost funds that have fueled much of the Berkshire's growth. Charlie and I believe this will continue to be the case, but we stumbled in a big way in 2001, largely because underwriting losses General Ray. In the past, I have assured you that the General was underwriting with discipline, and I've been proven wrong. Though its managers' intentions were good, the company broke each of the 3 underwriting rules I set forth in the last section and has paid a huge price for doing so. One obvious cost for its failure is that it did not reserve correctly. More about this in the next section, and therefore severely miscalculated the cost of the product it was selling. Not only your cost will cost probably many business long-term insurance, where years of underwriters will promote and prolong severe underpricing. Ignorance of true cost is dynamite. Additionally, General Ray was overly competitive in going after retaining business. While all concerned may intend to underwrite with care, it's nonetheless difficult for able hand-driving professionals to curb their urge to prevail over competitors of winning. However, is equated to market share rather than profits. Trouble awaits. There must be an important part of any underwriter's vocabulary and the risk of sounding Pollyannish. I now assure you that underwriting discipline is being restored at General Ray. And its Cologne Ray subsidiary with the appropriate urgency. Joe Brand was appointed General Ray CEO in September, along with Tan Montross, its new president. It committed producing underwriting profits. Last fall, Charlie and I read Jack Welch's terrific book, Jack Straight from the Gut. Get a copy. In discussing it, we agreed that Joe has many of Jack's characteristics. He is smart, energetic, hands-on, expect much of both himself and his organization. What was an independent company, John Ray often shown, and now it also has a considerable strength. Berkshire brings to the table with that added advantage and with underwriting discipline. Restored General Ray should be a huge asset for Berkshire. I predict that Joe and Ted will make it so. At the National Indemnity Insurance operation, Ajit Jain continued to add enormous value to Berkshire, working with only 18 associates. Ajit manages one of the world's largest reinsurance operations measured by the assets and the largest based upon the size of individual risk assumed. I have known the details of almost every policy that Ajit has written since he came with us in 1986, and never on even a single occasion have I seen him break any of our 3 underwriting rules. His extraordinary discipline, of course, does not eliminate losses. It does, however, prevent foolish losses, and that's the key. This is the case, and investing insurers produce outstanding long-term results primarily by avoiding dumb decisions rather than by making brilliant ones. Since September 11th, Ajit has been particularly busy among the policies we have written and retained entirely for our own account. Our $1, $578 million of property coverage for South American refinery once a loss or exceeds $1 billion. 2, $1 billion of non-cancelable third-party liability coverage for loss arising from acts of terrorism at several large international airlines. 3, $500 million pounds of property coverage on large North Sea all platform company losses from terrorism and sabotage, above 600 million pounds that the insured retained or uninsured elsewhere. And 4, significant coverage on this year's tower, including losses caused by terrorism above a $500 million threshold. We have written many other jumbo risks as well, such as protection for the World Cup soccer tournament and 2002 Winter Olympics. In all cases, however, we have attempted to avoid writing groups of policies from which losses might seriously aggregate. We will not, for example, write coverages on a large number of office and apartment towers in a single metropolis without exceeding losses from both a nuclear explosion and the fires that would follow it. No one can match the speed with which Ajit can offer huge policies after September 11th. His quickness to respond, always important, has become a major competitive advantage. So too has our unsurpassed financial strength. Some reinsurers, particularly those who were in turn are accustomed to laying off much of their business on a second layer of insurance, know that retrocessionaires are in a weakened condition and would have difficulty surviving a second mega cat. When a daisy chain of retrocessionaires exists, a single weak link can pose trouble for all in assessing the soundness of their insurance protection. Insurers must therefore apply stress tests to all participants in the chain and must contemplate a catastrophic loss occurring during a very unfavorable economic environment. After all, you only find out who is swimming naked when the tide goes out. At Berkshire, we turn our risk and depend on one and whatever the world's problems or checks will clear. Ajit's business will ebb and flow, but his underwriting principles won't waver. It's impossible to overstate his value to Berkshire. Geico, by far our largest primary insurer, made major progress in 2001 thanks to Tony Nicely, CEO, and his associates. Quite simply, Tony's an owner's dream. Geico's premium volume grew 6.6% last year. Its float grew $308 million and achieved an underwriting profit of $221 million. This means we were actually paid that amount last year to hold the $4.25 billion in float, which of course doesn't belong to Berkshire but can be used by us for investment. The only disappointment Geico in 2001, and it's an important one, was our inability to add policyholders. Our preferred customers, 81% of our total, grew by 1.6%, but our standard and non-standard policies fell by 10.1%. Overall policies in force fell 8%. New business has improved in recent months. Our closure rate from telephone inquiries has climbed, and our internet business continues its steady growth. We therefore expect at least a modest gain in policy count during 2002. Tony and I are eager to commit much more to marketing than $219 million we spent last year, but at the moment we cannot see how to do it effectively. In the meantime, our operating costs are low and far below those of our major competitors. Our prices are attractive, and our float is cost-free and growing. Our other primary insurers delivered their usual fine results last year. These operations run by Rod Eldred, John Kaiser, Tom McNerney, Michael Stearns, Don Toll, and Don Worster had combined premium volume $579 million, up 40% over 2000. Their float increased 14.5% to $685 million and recorded underwriting profit of $30 million in aggregate. These companies are one of the finest insurance operations in the country, and their 2003 prospect looks excellent. Loss development and insurance accounting. Terminology is the enemy of good thinking. When companies or investment professionals use terms such as EBITDA and pro forma, they want to unthinkingly accept that are dangerous or flawed. In golf, my score is frequently below par or pro forma basis. I have firm plan to restructure my putting stroke and therefore only count the swings I take before reaching the green. In insurance reporting, loss development is a widely used term and one that is seriously misleading. First definition, loss reserves that an insurer are not funds tucked away from a rainy day, but rather a liability account. If properly calculated, the liability states the amount that an insurer will have to pay for all losses, including associated costs that have occurred prior to the reporting due date but have not then been paid. When calculating the reserve, the insurer will have been notified of many losses it is destined to pay, but others will not yet have been reported to it. These losses are called IBNR, for incurred but not reported, in some cases involving, say, product liability or embezzlement. The insured itself will not be yet aware that a loss has occurred. It's very difficult for an insurer to put figure on the ultimate cost of all such reported and unreported events, but the ability to do so with reasonable accuracy is vital. Otherwise, the insurance manager won't know what its actual costs are and how to compare to the premiums being charged. Geico got into huge trouble in the early 1970s because for several years it severely under-reserved and therefore believed its product insurance protection was costing considerably less than was truly the case. Consequently, the company sailed blissfully along underpricing its product and selling more and more policies and even larger losses. When it becomes evident that the reserves had passed reporting dates understated the liability that truly existed at the time, companies speak of loss development and later discovered the shortfalls penalized reported earnings because the catch-up cost from prior years must be added to current year costs when resulting in our general calculated. This would happen to John Ray in 2001, a staggering $800 million of lost costs that actually occurred in earlier years, but that were not then recorded were belatedly recognized last year and charged against current earnings. The mistake was an honest one. I can assure you that nevertheless for several years this underreserving caused us to believe that our costs were much lower than the truly were error. They contributed to woefully inadequate pricing. Additionally, the overstated profit figures led to us pay substantial incentive compensation that we should not have had in our income taxes far earlier than that was necessary. We recommend scraping recommend scrapping the term loss development and weakly ugly to reserve strengthening. Can you imagine an insurer upon finding its reserves excessive, describing the reduction that follows a reserve weakening? Loss development suggests to investors that some natural and controllable events have occurred, and the current year in reserve strengthening implies that adequate amounts have been further. But the truth, however, is that management have made an error in estimation and in turn produced an error in their earnings previously. Reported the losses didn't develop, they were there all along. What developed was management's understanding of the losses, or in the instances of chicanery, management's willingness to finally fess up. A more forthright label for the phenomenon at issue would be loss costs would fail recognized when they occurred, or maybe just oops, under-reserving it should be noted as common and serious problem. Throughout the property casualty insurance industry at Berkshire, we told you of our own problems with underestimation in 1984 and 1986. General rate, however, reserving has been conservative. Major under-reserving is common in the case of companies struggling for survival. In effect, insurance accounting is self-graded and examined that the insurers give some figures to its auditing firm, and generally it doesn't get an argument. What the auditor gets, however, is a letter from management that has decided to take his firm off the hook if the numbers later look silly. A company experiencing financial difficulties of a kind that if truly faced could put it out of business seldom proves to be tough grader who, after all, wants to prepare his own execution papers. Even when companies have the best of intentions, it's not easy to reserve properly. I've told the story in the past about the fellow traveling abroad whose sister called to tell him that her dad had died. The brother replied that it was impossible for him to get home for the funeral. He volunteered, however, to shoulder its cost. Upon returning, the brother received a bill from the mortuary for $4,500, which he promptly paid. A month later, and a month after that, also he paid $10 pursuant to an invoice. When a third $10 invoice came, he called to search for an explanation. "Oh," she replied, "I forgot to tell you, we're buried down in a rented suit." There are a lot of rented suits buried in the past operations of insurance companies. Sometimes the problems they significantly lay dormant for decades. This was the case with asbestos liability before violently manifesting themselves. Difficulty as their job may be its management's responsibility. Conservatism is essential. When the claims manager walks in the CEO's office and says, "Guess what just happened?" His boss, a veteran, does not expect to hear this good news. Surprises in the insurance world have been far from symmetrical in their effect on earnings. Because of this one-sided experience, it is folly to suggest that some are doing that all property casualty insurance reserves to be discounted, or approach reflecting the fact that they will be paid in the future and that therefore their present value is less than the stated liability for them. Discounting might be acceptable if reserves could be precisely established. They can't, however, because of mere forces judicial broadening of policy language, medical inflation, to name just a few. True chronic problems are constantly working to make reserves inadequate. Discounting would exacerbate this already serious situation, and additionally would provide a new tool for the companies that are inclined to fudge. I say that the effects from telling a profit challenge the insurance CEO to lower reserve, though discounting would be comparable to those that would ensue if a father told a 16-year-old son to have a normal sex life. Neither party needs that kind of push. Sources of reported earnings. It's the table. The table follows shows the main sources of Berkshire's reported earnings, and this percentage of purchase accounting adjustment permanently relating to goodwill are not instead the specific business to which they apply, but are instead aggregated and shown separately. This procedure lets you view the earnings of our business as they would have been reported had we not purchased them. In recent years, our expense for goodwill amortization has been large. Going forward, generally accepted accounting principles, GAAP, will no longer require amortization of goodwill. This change will increase our reported earnings, though not our true economic earnings. Simplify this section of the report. Operating earnings, insurance group, underwriting insurance, underwriting Geico, underwriting primary net investment income, building products, finance and financial products, business, flight services, Mid-American Energy, 76% owned. Retail operations, Scott Fetzer, excluding finance operation, Shaw Industries, other business, purchase accounting adjustments, corporate interest expense, shareholder designated contributions, other operating earnings, capital gains from investment, total earnings, all entities. Pre-tax earnings, 2001, 2000, $4,318, $221, $30, $2,824, $461, $519, $586, $600, $175, $129, $192, $179, $726, $92, $17, $25, $488, $1,320, $1,808, $1,416, $224, $25, $1,773, $34, $530, $213, $90, $187, $175, $122, blank, $221, $881, $92, $17, $39, $1,699, $3,955, $5,654. Berkshire shares of net earnings after taxes and minority interests in millions. $2,824, $144, 18, 1,968, 287, 336, 105, 230, 101, 83, 156, 103, 699, 60, 11, 16, 47, 842, 795, 911, $2,911, 146, 16, 1,946, 21, 343, 126, 109, 104, 80, 133, 843, 61, 11, 30, 936, 2,392, 3,328. Includes Acme Brick from August 1, 2000, Benjamin Moore from December 18, 2000, John Mansfield from February 27, 2000, and MyTech from July 31, 2001. From data acquisition, January 8, 2001. Here are some highlights and lowlights from 2001 later in non-insurance activities. Our show operations including other businesses has lost $46.2 million pre-tax with profits at H.H. Brown and Justin swamped by losses at Dexter. I've made these three essentially think Dexter that have hurt you in a major way. Buying it in the first place, paying for it with stock, and procrastinating when the need for changes in its operations was obvious. I would like to lay these mistakes on Charlie and anyone else for that matter, but they were mine. Dexter prior to our purchase and indeed for a few years after prospered despite low cost for a competition that was brutal. I concluded that Dexter could continue to cope with that problem and I was wrong. We have now placed the Dexter operation, which is still substantial in size, under the management of Frank Rooney and Jim Esler at the H.H. Brown. These men have performed outstandingly for Berkshire, skillfully contending with extraordinary changes that have bedeviled the footwear industry during the part of 2002. Dexter will be hurt by unprofitable sales commitments it's made last year. After that, we believe our shoe business will be reasonably profitable. Mid-American Energy, of which we own 76% of fully diluted business, had a good year in 2001. Reported earnings should also increase considerably in 2002, given that the company has been shouldering a large charge for the amortization of goodwill and that this cost will disappear under the new WAP rules. Last year, Mid-American and swapped some properties in England, adding Yorkshire Electric with its $2.1 million customer. We have an equally important operation in Iowa as well, major general facilities in California and the Philippines. At Mid-American, this may surprise you. We also own the second largest residential estate brokerage business in the country. We are market share leaders in a number of large cities, primarily in the Midwest, and have recently acquired important firms in Atlanta and Southern California. Last year, operating under various names that are locally familiar, we handled a 106,000 transaction involving properties worth nearly $20 billion. Sean Peltier has built this business for us, and it's likely that he will make more acquisitions in 2002 and the years to come. Considering the recessionary environment plaguing them, our retail operations did well in 2001. In jewelry, same-store sales fell 7.6%, and pre-tax margins were 8.9% versus 10.7% in 2000. Return on invested capital remains high. Same-store sales at our home furnishing retailers were unchanged, and so was the margin, 9.1% pre-tax in these operations earned here too. Return on invested capital is excellent. We continue to expand in both jewelry and home furnishing. Of particular note, Nebraska Furniture Mart is constructing a mammoth 450,000 square foot store that will serve the greater Kansas City area beginning in the fall of 2003. Despite Bill Shaw's counter success, we will keep the store open on Sundays. The large acquisition we initiated in late 2000, Shaw, Johns Manville, and Benjamin Moore all came through their first year with us in great fashion. Charlie and I knew that at the time of our purchase, we were in good hands with Bob Shaw, Jerry Henry, and Evan Dupuy, respectively, and we admire their work and even more. Now, together, these businesses have earned about $659 million pre-tax. Shortly after year-end, we exchanged 4,740 Berkshire shares, or the equivalent in B shares, for the 12.7% minority interest in Shaw, which means we now own 100% of the company. Shaw is our largest non-insurance operation and will play a big part in Berkshire's furniture. Of the income shown for flight service in 2001, and a bit more came from Flight Safety, our pilot training subsidiary. Its earnings increased in 2.5%, though return on invested capital fell slightly because of the $258 million investment we made last year in simulators and other fixed assets. My 85-year-old friend, Al Welshi, continues to run Flight Safety with the same enthusiasm and competitive spirit that he has exhibited since 1951. He invested $10,000 to start the company. If I line up Al up with a bunch of 6 years old at the annual meeting, you will not be able to pick him out. After September 11th, training for commercial airlines fell today. It remains depressed. However, training for business and general aviation of our main activity is not near normal levels and should continue to grow in 2002. We expect to spend $160 million for 27 simulators, some far in excess of our annual depreciation charge of $95 million. Those who believe the EBITDA is in any way equivalent to true earnings are welcome to pick up the tab. Our Not Just Fractional Ownership Program sold a record number of planes last year and also showed a gain of 21.9% in service income from management fees and early charges. Nevertheless, it operated at a small loss. profit in 2000. We made a little money in the U.S., but these earnings were more than offset by European losses measured by the value of our customers' planes. That should account for about half of the industry. We believe the other participants in aggregate lost significant money. Maintaining a premier level of safety, security, and service was always expensive, and the cost of sticking those standards was exacerbated by September 11th. No matter how much it costs, we will continue to be the industry leader in all three respects, an uncompromising insistence on delivering only the best to his customers is embedded in the name of Rich Santulli, CEO of the company, and the inventor of fractional ownership. I'm related with his fanaticism on these matters for both the company's sake and my family's. I believe the Buffetts fly more fractional ownership. Ours, we log in excess of 800 annually. Does any other family, in case you're wondering, we use exactly the same planes and crews that serve NetJet's other customers. NetJet's experience spurred a new order shortly after September 11th, but its sales pace has since returned to normal. Per customer usage declined somewhat during the year, probably because of the recession. Both we and our customers derive significant operational benefits from our being the runaway leader in the fractional ownership business. We have more than 300 planes constantly on the go in the U.S. and can therefore be whatever the customer needs us on a very short notice. The ubiquity of our fleet also reduces our positioning costs below those incurred operations with smaller fleets. These advantages of scale and others we have given not just a significant economic edge over competition under the competitive conditions like that prevail for a few years. However, our demand shall be at best produce modest profits. Our finance and financial products lines of business now includes extra general risk securities, which is in run-off mode that will continue for an extended period, and a few other relative small operations. The bulk of assets and liabilities in this segment, however, rise from a few fixed income strategies involving high liquid AAA securities, and I manage this activity, which only makes sense when certain market relationship exists, has produced good returns in the past, and has reasonable prospect for continuing to do so over the next year or two. Below, we are present in common stock investment. Those that had a market value of more than $500 million at the end of 2000 were itemized. $151,610,700, $2 million, $200 million, $96 million, $15,999,200, $24 million, $1,727,665, $33,265,080. Company: American Express Company, The Coca-Cola Company, Gillette Company, Asian on the Block Incorporated, Moody's Corporation, Washington Post Company, Wells Fargo and Company. Others. Total common stocks 1231.1. Cost market dollars in million $1,470, $1,299, $600, $255, $499, $11, $306, $4,103, $8,543, 5,410, 9,430, 3,206, 715, 957, 916, 2,315, 5,726, 28,675. We made a few changes in our portfolio during 2001 as a group. Our larger holdings have performed poorly in the last few years, some because of disappointing operating results. Charlie and I still like the basic business of all the companies we own, but we do not believe Berkshire's equity holdings as a group are undervalued. Our strained enthusiasm for these securities is matched by decidedly lukewarm feelings about the prospect for stocks in general over the next decade or so. I expressed my views about equity returns in a speech I gave at an Allen Company meeting in July, which is follow-up to a similar presentation I had made 2 years earlier. An edited version of my comments appeared in a December 10th Fortune article. I'm enclosing a copy of that article. You can also view the Fortune version of my 1999 talk on our website, www.berkshirehathaway.com. Charlie and I believe that American business will do fine over time, but I think that today's equity price presage only moderate returns for investors. The market outperformed business for a very long period, and that phenomenon had to end. A market that no more than parallels business progress, however, is likely to leave many investors disappointed, particularly those relative new to the game. Here's one of those who enjoy an odd coincidence. The Great Bubble ended on March 10, 2000, though we didn't realize the fact until some months later. On that day, the Nasdaq recently 1,731 hits all-time high of 5,132. That same day, Berkshire shares trade at $40,800, their lowest price since mid-1997. During 2001, we were somewhat more active than usual in junk bonds. These are not what we should emphasize, suitable investments for the general public, because too often these securities live to their name. We have never purchased a newly issued junk bond, which is the only kind of most investors are urged to buy when losses occur in this field of furthermore, they are often disastrous. Many issues end up with a small fraction of their original offering price, and some become entirely worthless. Despite these dangers, we probably find a very few junk securities that are interesting to us. And so far, about 50-year experience. This trust step has proven rewarding in our 1984 annual report. We described the purchase of Washington Public Power System bonds, what the issuer fell into dispute. We've also, over the years, stepped into other apartment climates such as Chrysler, Financial Texaco, and RJR Nabisco, all of which returned to grace. Still, if we stay active in junk bonds, you can expect us to have losses from time to time. Occasionally, a purchase of distressed bonds leads into something bigger. Early in the Fruit of the Loom bankruptcy, we purchased the company's public and bank debt at about 50% of face value. This was an unusual bankruptcy in that interest payments on senior debt were continued without interruption, which meant we earned about 15% current return. Our holdings grew 10% of Fruit Senior's debt, which will probably end up returning as about 70% of value, though this investment indirectly reduced our purchase small for the price of the whole company by a small amount. In late 2000, we began purchasing the obligations of Finova Group, a troubled finance company that too led to our making a major transaction. Finova then had about $11 billion of debt outstanding, of which we purchased 13% at about 2/3 of face value. We expected the company to go into bankruptcy. We believed that liquidation of its assets would produce a payoff for creditors that would be well above our cost. As the fault loomed in early 2001, we joined forces with Lucadia National Corporation to present the company with a prepackaged plan for bankruptcy. The plan subsequently modified, and I'm simplifying here, provided that creditors would be paid 70% of face value along with full interest, and that they would receive a newly issued 7 to 1.5% note for the 30% of their claims not satisfied by cash to fund Finova's 70% distribution. Lucadia and Berkshire formed a jointly owned entity, fluently Kristen Berkshire, borrowed $5.6 billion through Fleets Boston, and in turn relent this sum to Finova, concurrently obtaining priority claim on its asset. Berkshire guaranteed 90% of the Berkshire borrowing and also had a secondary guarantee on the 10% of which Lucadia is primarily responsibility. Did I mention that I am simplifying? There is a spread of about 2 percentage points between what Berkshire pays on its borrowing and what it receives from Finova, with the spread following 90% Berkshire and 10% to Lucadia. As I write this, each loan has been paid down to $3.9 billion. As part of the bankruptcy plan, which was approved in August 10, 2001, Berkshire also agreed to offer 70% of face value for up to $500 million principal amount of the $3.25 billion of new 7.5% bonds that were issued by Finova. Of these, we have already received $426.8 million in principal amount because of our 30% ownership of the original debt. Our offer, which was in run until September 26, 2001, could be withdrawn under a variety of conditions, one of which became operative. The New York Stock Exchange closed during the offering period. With that indeed occurring in the week of September 11th, we promptly terminated the offer. Many of Finova's loans involved aircraft assets whose values were significantly diminished by the events of September 11th. Other receivables held by the company also were imperiled by the economic consequence of the attack that day. Finova's prospects, therefore, are not as good as when we made our proposal to the bankruptcy court. Nevertheless, we feel that overall the transaction will provide satisfactory for Berkshire. Lucadia has today operating and responsibility for Finova, and we have long impressed with the business acumen and marginal talent of its executives. It's deja vu time again in early 1965 when the investment partnership Iran took control of Berkshire. The company had its main banking relationship with First National Bank of Boston, a large New York City bank. Previously, I had done no business with either. Fast forward to 1969 when I wanted Berkshire to buy the Illinois National Bank and Trust of Rockford. We needed $10 million, and I contacted both banks. There was no response from New York. However, to a representative of the Boston Bank immediately came to Omaha. They told me they would supply the money for our purchase and that we would work out the details later. For the next 3 decades, we borrowed almost nothing from banks. That was a 4-letter word around Berkshire. Then in February, when we were structuring the Finova transaction, I again called Boston when First National had morphed into Fleet Boston. Chad Gifford, the company's president, responded to the Bill Brown Iris Stepanian had back in 1969. You've got the money and we'll work the details later. And that's just what happened. The Fleet Boston syndicated a loan for $6 billion. It turned out we didn't need $400 million of it. It was quickly oversubscribed by 17 banks throughout the world. So if you've never need $6 billion, just give Chad a call, assuming that it's your credit is AAA. One more point about an investment is the media often report that Buffett is buying this or security, having picked up the fact from reports that Berkshire files. These accounts are sometimes correct, but other times the transaction Berkshire reports are actually being made by Lou Simpson, who runs a $2 billion portfolio for Geico. That's quite independent of me normally. Lou does not tell me what he's buying or selling, and I learn of his own when I look at Geico portfolio summary that I issue a few days later after the end of each month. Lou's thinking for it is quite similar to mine. But we usually end up in different securities. That's largely because he works with less money and therefore invests in smaller companies. And there's another minor difference between us. In years, Lou's performance has been far better than mine. Charitable contributions. Berkshire follows a highly unusual policy in respect to charitable contributions, but it's one that Charlie and I believe is both rational and fair to owners. First, we let our operating subsidiaries make their own charitable decisions, requesting only that the owners, managers who once ran these as independent companies make all donations to their personal charities from their own funds instead of using company money. When our managers are using company funds, we trust them to make gifts in a manner that delivers commensurate tangible and intangible benefits to operations to manage. Last year, contributions from Berkshire subsidiaries totaled $19.2 million. At the parent company level, we make no contributions except those designated by shareholders. We do not match contributions made by the directors' employees, nor do we give to the favorite charities of the Buffetts or the Mungers. However, prior to our purchasing them and a few, our subsidiaries had employed match programs, and we feel fine about our continuing them. It's not a sell to tamper with successful business cultures. To implement our own charitable desires, each year we notified registered holders of A shares. A represent 86% of our equity capital of a per share amount that they can instruct us to contribute to as many as the 3 charities. Shareholder named charity, Berkshire writes a check. Any organization that qualifies under the Internal Revenue Code can be designated by the shareholders. Last year, Berkshire made contributions of $16.7 million in the direction of 5,700 shares, who named 3,550 charities as recipients. Since we started this program, our shareholders' gifts have totaled $881 million. Most public corporations eschew gifts to religious institutions. These, however, are favorite charities of our shareholders who last year named 437 churches and synagogues to receive gifts. Additionally, 790 schools were recipients. A few of our large shareholders, including Charlene May, designated their personal foundations to get gifts so that those entities can in turn disperse their funds widely. I get a few letters a week of criticizing Berkshire for contributing to Planned Parenthood. These letters are usually prompted by an organization that wishes to see boycotts of Berkshire products. The letters are invariably polite and sincere, but the writers are unaware of a key point. It's not Berkshire, but rather its owners who are making charitable decisions. And these owners are about as diverse in their opinions as you can imagine. For example, there are probably both sides of the abortion issue, and roughly the same proportion of the American population will follow their instructions, whether they designate Planned Parenthood or Metro Right to Life. Just as long as the charity possesses 501c3 status, it's that we paid a dividend which the shareholder donated. Our form of disbursement, however, is more tax efficient. In either the purchase of goods nor the hiring of personnel do we even consider religious views, the gender, the race, or the sexual orientation of the persons we are dealing with. It would not only be wrong to do so, it would be idiotic. We need all the talent we can find, and we have learned that able and trustworthy managers, employees, and suppliers come from a very wide spectrum of humanity. To participate in our future charitable contributions program, you must own Class A shares that are registered in the name of the actual owner, to not the nominee, name of broker, bank, or depository shares not to register on August 31, 2002. Will be ineligible for 2002 program. When you get the contribution form from us, return promptly. Designation received after the due date will not be honored. The annual meeting. This year's annual meeting will be on Saturday, May 4th, and we will again be at the Civic Auditorium. The doors will open at 7 a.m. The movie will begin at 8:30, and the meeting itself will commence at 9:30. There will be a short break at noon for food. Sandwiches can be bought for Civic's concession stands. Except for that, in interlude, Charlie and I will answer questions at 3:30. Give us your best shot. For at least the next year, the Civic located downtown is the only site available to us. We must therefore hold the meeting on either Saturday or Sunday to avoid the traffic and parking nightmares sure to occur on a weekday. Shortly, however, Omaha will have a new convention center with plenty of parking facilities. Assuming that we didn't head for the center, I will poll shareholders to see whether you wish to return to Monday meeting that was tenured until 2000. We will decide that vote based on a count of shareholders, not shares, is not a system. However, we will never institute to decide who should be CEO. Attachment to the proxy material that is enclosed with this report explains how you can obtain the credential you will need for an admission to the meeting and other events. As for plain hotel and car reservations, we have again signed up American Express 800-799-6634 to give you special help. They do a terrific job for us each year, and I thank them for it. In our usual fashion, we'll run buses from large hotels to the meeting. Afterwards, the buses will take trips back to the hotels in Nebraska Furniture Mart, Borsheim's, and the airport. Even so, you're like to find a car useful. We have added so many companies to Berkshire this year that I'm not going to detail all of the products we will be selling at the meeting, but come prepared to carry home everything from bricks to candy and underwear, of course, assuming our fruit of the loan purchase has closed by May 4. We'll be selling Fruit's latest styles, which will make you your neighborhood's fashion leader by a lifetime supply. Geico will have a booth staffed by a number of its top counselors from around the country. All of them are ready to supply you with the auto insurance quotes. In most cases, Geico will be able to give you a special shareholder discount, usually 8%. The special offer is primarily by 41 of the 49 jurisdiction in which we operate. Bring the details of your existing insurance and check out whether we can save you money. At the Omaha Airport on Saturday, we will have the usual array of aircraft from NetJets available for your inspection. Just as ask a representative at the Civic about viewing any of these planes. If you buy what we consider an appropriate number of items during the weekend, you may well need your own plane to take them home. And if you buy a fraction of a plane, we might even throw in a free bag of briefs of boxers. At the Nebraska Furniture Mart, located on a 75-acre site on 72nd Street between Dodge and Pacific, we will again be having Berkshire weekend pricing, which means we'll be offering our shareholders a discount that is customarily given only to employees. We initiated this special pricing at the NFM 5 years ago, and sales during the weekend grew from $5.3 million in 1997 to $11.5 million in 2001. To get the discount, you must make a purchase on Thursday, May 2 through Monday, May 6, and also present your meeting credential. The period special pricing will even apply to products of several prestigious manufacturers that normally have ironclad rules against discounting, but that in the spirit of our shareholders weekend have made an exception for you. We appreciate their cooperation. NFM is open from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. on weekdays and 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Saturdays and Sundays. Borsheim, the largest jewelry store in the country, except for Tiffany's Manhattan store, will have 2 shareholders-only events. The first will be a cocktail reception from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. on Friday, May 3, and second main gala will be from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Sunday. May 5 shareholder price will be available Thursday through Monday, so you wish to avoid the large crowd that will assemble on Friday evening and Sunday, come at other times and identify yourself as a shareholder. On Saturday, will be open until 6 p.m. Borsheim operates in a gross margin that is full 20 percentage points below that of its major rival, so the more you buy, the more you save, or at least that's what my wife and daughter tell me. Come by and let us perform a wallet teletectomy on you. In the mall outside of Brooklands, we will have some of the world's top bridge experts available to play with our shareholders on Sunday afternoon. We expect Bob and Petra Hammond, along with the Sharon Osberg, to host tables. Patrick Wolf, twice U.S. champion, will also be in the mall taking on all comers blindfolded. Last year, Patrick played many 6 games simultaneously with his blindfold securely in place, and this year we'll try for 7. Finally, Bill Roberti, one of 2 players who have twice won the Bagamon World Championship, will be on hand to test your skill at the game. Come to the mall on Sunday for Men's Olympics. Goritz, my favorite steakhouse, will again be open exclusively for Berkshire shareholders on Sunday, May 5, and will be serving from 4 p.m. until 10 p.m. Please remember that to come to Goritz on Sundays, we must have a reservation. To make one call, 402-551-3733 on April 1, but not before. If Sunday is sold out, try Goritz on one of our other evenings. You will be in town. Show your sophistication by ordering a rare T-bone with a double order of hash browns. The usual baseball game will be held at Rosenblatt Stadium at 7 p.m. on Saturday's night. This year, the Omaha Royals will play the Oklahoma Red Hawks. Last year, in an attempt to emulate the career switch of Babe Ruth, I gave up pitching and tried batting. Bob Gibson, an Omaha native, was on the mound, and I was terrified, fearing Bob's famous brushback pitch. Instead, he delivered the fastball in the strike zone and with a Mark McGwire-like swing. I managed to connect from a hard ground, which inexplicably died in field. I didn't run it out. At my age, I get winded playing a hand of bridge. I'm not sure what will take place at the ballpark this year, but come out and be surprised. Our proxy statement contains instruction for obtaining tickets to the game. Those people ordering tickets to the annual meeting will receive a booklet containing all manner of information that should help you enjoy your visit in Omaha. There will be plenty of action in town, so come from the Woodstock weekend and join our celebration of capitalism at the Civic. Finally, I would like to thank the wonderful, incredibly protective crew at the World Headquarters, all 5,446.5 square feet of it, who make my job so easy. Berkshire added about 40,000 employees last year, bringing our workforce to 110,000 at headquarters. We added 1 employee and now have 14.8. I've tried in vain to get Joellen Rick to change her work week from 4 days to 5. I think she likes the national recognition. She gains by being 0.8. The smooth handling of the array of duties come with our current size and scope, as well as some additional activities almost unique to Berkshire, such as shareholder scale and designated gift throwing. Take a very special group of people, and that we most definitely have February 20, 2002, Warren E. Buffett, Chairman of the Board.